During Thanksgiving dinner, my drunk neighbor crashed in screaming I stole his Amazon package, smashed my TV, injured my uncle, then blamed us. But when I found footage showing his wife took it, I sent it with a lawsuit and the bill for Thanksgiving repairs. I was standing in the break room at 8:12 a.m. on a Wednesday when everything finally snapped into place. The lies, the fake smiles, the little comments that never sat right. HR had just told us payroll was temporarily frozen pending a compliance review, and everyone was freaking out. My coworkers kept looking at me like I had answers, like I was the one who could fix things. My supervisor, Melissa, kept pacing the hallway with her phone glued to her ear, whispering fast and angry like someone trying to put out a fire they secretly started. The best part, I already knew exactly why the Department of Labor had shown up unannounced. I knew why the auditors were dragging out boxes of old time cards and asking to interview staff one by one. I knew why Melissa suddenly looked like she was about to throw up. Because I'm the one who lit the fuse, quietly, carefully, and with months of receipts. But that morning, while chaos swirled around me, I wasn't feeling triumphant yet. I wasn't smiling. I wasn't even breathing right. I just stood there, staring into my coffee, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Because watching your workplace implode, knowing damn well you were pushed this far, is a different kind of numb. Things had been building for months before this. I'd been the reliable one, the team player, the person who picked up every dropped ball and smoothed over every crisis. I trained new hires who got higher pay than me. I covered shifts. I skipped lunches. I stayed late. I did all of it without ever once thinking I needed to track every unpaid hour, until the day Melissa made that comment. It was 2 months earlier. I had just finished staying 2 extra hours helping a new guy, Brandon, fix a mess in the warehouse. I was tired, sweaty, starving, and ready to go home when I overheard the team talking about their bonuses. Actual bonuses. Not gift cards, real money, bonuses I didn't get. When I asked Melissa about it, she didn't even try to sugarcoat it. She just actually smirked, and said, "Maybe if you weren't so eager to help everyone for free, you'd be worth more on paper." I swear something inside me went cold. Not angry, not sad, just cold like someone had flipped a switch I didn't know existed. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just walked away, sat in my car, and stared at the steering wheel until my vision blurred. That was the night I started documenting everything. Every unpaid minute. Every email telling me to just clock out and finish up real quick. Every time someone asked me to train another person while making less. Every time Melissa asked me to not make it a thing when they messed up payroll. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't vent. I stayed quiet, polite, dependable. I let them believe I was still the same person who would go the extra mile for nothing. Meanwhile, I was building something they couldn't see, a record that showed exactly how they'd been breaking the law for years. And now here we were, audit day. The DOL agents walked past me again, this time carrying Melissa's binder of schedules. She looked pale, she looked like she might cry. And my coworkers, they were whispering about something I couldn't quite hear. One of them finally walked over to me slowly, eyes wide, and said, "They're asking questions about you. About your hours, about who told them to come." I froze, because I knew what I had done. But I had no idea what they had found. Before all this blew up, my life in Columbus, Ohio was painfully ordinary. I worked at a mid-sized distribution company on the east side. The kind of place where the fluorescent lights always flickered and the break room fridge smelled like old spaghetti. I'd been there almost 3 years, long enough to know everyone's habits, moods, and petty grudges. Long enough to know which managers actually earned their title and which ones just coasted. I started as a temp, fresh out of a bad breakup and desperate for steady income. When they offered me a permanent position, I grabbed it fast, grateful for anything stable. I didn't plan on staying long. But then life got in the way, car payments, rent increases, medical bills, all the little traps adulthood throws at you, until suddenly you're tied down by invisible strings. At first, I really liked the job, or maybe I just liked feeling needed. People came to me when things went wrong. They trusted me. New hires shadowed me because I explained things clearly and didn't treat them like idiots. Even upper management knew that if something urgent needed fixing, I'd handle it quietly and correctly. That reputation felt good, until it didn't. Because eventually, being the dependable one stopped feeling like a compliment and started feeling like a curse. The more I did, the more they piled on. It wasn't intentional at first, just convenience. Then it became routine. Then expectation. Before long, I was training people who made more than me. I was covering for coworkers who barely showed up. I was doing tasks that technically belonged to supervisors without getting the pay or the title. But I kept my head down. I didn't want to be difficult. I didn't want to lose the one stable thing I had left. Melissa, the supervisor at the center of this whole mess, didn't start off awful. When she first arrived from another branch, she seemed sharp, put together, confident. She talked a big game about fairness and structure. I liked her at the beginning. She was organized, direct. She actually praised good work, which was a shock in that place. But a few months in, she started slipping. It was subtle, little things, telling me to clock out and just finish up, asking me to train someone and then acting like it was my choice, so it didn't qualify for extra pay. She'd send late-night emails with, "Hey, can you handle this before tomorrow?" Expectations. She'd pull me aside and say, "You're the only one I can trust with this," which really meant, "I'm dumping unpaid labor on you." It got worse after Brandon joined. He was new, nice enough, but inexperienced. I spent hours helping him, walking him through mistakes, fixing problems he created, because no one had trained him properly except me. That was also when the bonus situation started getting obvious. Brandon and others would talk about theirs casually, numbers that made me sick to hear, considering how much of their job I'd basically done for them. The day Melissa made that comment about me not being worth more on paper, something inside me cracked. But the truth is, the resentment didn't start that day. It just finally surfaced. Because deep down, I'd known for a long time that I was being used. Still, even with all that, I never imagined things would blow up the way they eventually did. I didn't expect the Department of Labor to take action so fast. I didn't expect the audit to turn into a full-on payroll freeze. And I definitely didn't expect them to ask specifically about me. Something about that scared me more than I wanted to admit, because I had documented everything. But I hadn't told them everything, not yet. After that night in my car, the night Melissa basically told me my work wasn't worth paying for, I changed how I moved through that place. On the surface, nothing looked different. I still showed up early. I still helped people. I still trained new hires. I still responded to emails quickly and quietly fixed things before anyone higher up noticed. But inside, I was paying attention in a way I never had before. I noticed how Melissa always forgot to approve my overtime but approved everyone else's. I noticed how she'd slip in comments like, "You're amazing for staying late. Please don't log that. We're tight on hours," like it was some kind of compliment. I noticed how HR always acted confused when I asked about missing pay, like the problem was my memory instead of their policies. And once I noticed those things, I couldn't unsee them. I bought a cheap spiral notebook and kept it in my car, hidden under the passenger seat. Every day before starting the engine, I'd write down the exact times I worked, real times, not the ones on my time card. I'd take photos of the schedule with my phone. I'd screenshot emails and save them to a personal drive. I collected everything: dates, times, conversations, patterns. Within 2 weeks, I had enough evidence to make any lawyer salivate. But I wasn't ready to do anything yet, not until things escalated even more. And of course, they did. It started with the mandatory voluntary overtime email. Yes, that's what they called it. Mandatory voluntary. We all knew what it meant. Come in early, stay late, don't complain, don't expect extra pay. When I brought it up to Melissa, asking if that was even legal, she shrugged and said, "It's only illegal if someone makes it a problem." That sentence sat in my chest like poison. Around the same time, Brandon messed up a shipment. A big one. Thousands of dollars worth of inventory scanned and labeled. When Melissa asked who trained him on that system, he immediately said my name, even though I'd told him multiple times that Melissa needed to walk him through that specific process because I wasn't authorized to. Melissa didn't care. She pulled me into her office and said, "You need to be more careful when you're showing people things. This is reflecting poorly on you." That was the moment I realized something important. She wasn't just using me. She was setting me up as the fall guy whenever something went wrong. After that, I stopped thinking in terms of documenting things just in case. I started thinking in terms of building a case. The final push came 3 weeks later. Payroll shorted me 8 hours. Not overtime, regular hours. When I emailed payroll, they told me my timesheet didn't match the schedule, so they corrected it. When I forwarded the screenshots of Melissa telling me to come in early, payroll said they needed confirmation from her. Melissa's response? She emailed back saying, "Op must have misunderstood. They were not scheduled at that time." I sat there staring at her words for at least a full minute, feeling my face heat up. She had rewritten reality in 2 sentences. That night, I didn't go home. I drove straight to a 24-hour coffee spot near Ohio State's campus, opened my laptop, and researched everything: wage theft laws, whistleblower protections, federal labor violations, how to file a complaint anonymously. By 2:37 a.m., I filled out the entire Department of Labor submission form and hit submit. I thought it would take months or that they might ignore it completely. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, the audit began. And the moment they walked in, the energy in the building shifted so hard it was like oxygen got sucked out of the air. And even though I knew I caused it, something told me this audit wasn't just about me. The day after the audit began, things got strange fast. Not just tense, strange. People were being called into the conference room one at a time. Some came out looking confused, others pissed, a few straight up scared. Melissa kept disappearing into her office for long stretches, only to reemerge with that brittle, fake smile she used when she was cornered. But the weirdest part was how certain coworkers started avoiding me. Not in an audit stress way, more like they knew something I didn't. They whispered in corners and shut up when I walked by. Brandon kept staring at me like he was waiting for me to explode. I didn't understand it until the third day of the audit. That morning, one of the DOL investigators, Evans, a quiet guy with a clipboard who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, asked to speak with me privately. He wasn't intimidating, but he had that calm tone that makes you feel like everything you say is being recorded in invisible ink somewhere. We sat in a small office near the shipping bay. He asked standard questions at first. My hours, my duties, how overtime worked or didn't. I answered honestly, keeping my voice level. I didn't mention my complaint. I didn't need to. Then he flipped a page and said, "We've had multiple employees state that you were the one approving shift changes, assigning tasks, and managing portions of the floor. Is that accurate?" I froze, because I wasn't a supervisor. I had no authority. I never approved shifts or managed anything beyond what Melissa told me to handle. "I didn't approve anything," I said carefully. "I don't have permission for that." Evans nodded once. "That's what I thought, but your supervisor stated that you often took initiative and made decisions without authorization. She implied you may be responsible for several scheduling discrepancies." My chest tightened. She was blaming me, not in a subtle way, not miscommunication. She was outright claiming I had been acting like some rogue manager and messing up payroll. Evans kept talking, calmly flipping through papers. "She provided copies of emails she says you sent adjusting shifts, but several don't match the email records we pulled from the server." I felt sick, actually sick. Like my stomach was trying to crawl into my throat, because I had never sent any email adjusting anyone's shift. "I didn't write those," I said, my voice shaking for the first time. Evans looked at me with a softness that felt like pity. "We suspected that. The metadata is inconsistent, but we need you to be extremely clear. Have you ever edited schedules, approved overtime, or authorized employees to work off the clock?" "No," I said immediately. "Never," he scribbled something. "That's helpful, thank you." Helpful? I didn't feel helpful. I felt like someone had just slammed a door shut behind me and locked it. After he walked me out, I noticed Melissa watching from down the hall. Her expression was unreadable, tight jaw, narrowed eyes like she was calculating something. When I passed her, she smiled. Actually smiled. That thin, smug, silent smile she used when she thought she'd gotten away with something. I didn't understand why until later that afternoon, when 2 coworkers pulled me into the break room and told me what she'd been saying for days. "She's telling everyone you're the whistleblower," one whispered. "And she's telling the investigators you manipulated schedules," the other added. My head spun. She was trying to destroy me on both fronts, turn the team against me while using me as the fall guy for illegal payroll practices. But the part that hit hardest was this: she was framing me using fake emails. Emails she'd made. That's when everything shifted, because suddenly this wasn't about unpaid hours anymore. This was about survival. The moment I learned Melissa was fabricating emails with my name on them, something inside me went from cold to solid. Not rage, not panic, just this heavy, grounded certainty that she had crossed a line she couldn't walk back from. Up until then, I'd wanted accountability, fairness, maybe back pay, nothing dramatic, nothing messy, but framing me, trying to pin federal violations on me, turning my coworkers against me so I'd look guilty before I even knew I was being accused. That changed everything. I went home that night and didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table in my tiny apartment near Reynoldsburg with my laptop open, staring at the folder where I'd been storing all my documentation. It wasn't enough anymore. Not if she was manufacturing evidence. Not if she was planting narratives in investigators' ears. I needed something stronger, something that showed intent. I needed to prove she knew exactly what she was doing. So I started planning. Step 1, back up everything. I uploaded every screenshot, every time log, every saved email to 3 different encrypted cloud drives. I printed hard copies and hid them in a shoebox in my closet. I even texted a copy to a number only I used, an old prepaid phone that stayed in a drawer. If they deleted anything from my work accounts, I'd still have it. Step 2, gather witness statements quietly. Not formal ones, just conversations. I started asking coworkers harmless questions. Hey, did Melissa ever tell you to clock out and keep working? Or did she ever say I adjusted your schedule? Their reactions said more than their words. Most said yes to the first question. Most said no to the second. One whispered, she tried to get me to agree that you changed my shift, but I told her that didn't happen. That one sentence alone was dynamite. Step 3. Focus on the emails, her fake ones. If she forged messages, then the real server logs would expose her. And she didn't realize something important. I had a friend. Someone outside the company. Someone who worked in IT security for a credit union in Westerville, and owed me a favor I never planned to cash in. Until now. I sent him a text. Hypothetically, how hard is it to check if an email was spoofed if I have screenshots? His reply came back fast. If you have the original headers, super easy. If not, still possible. Why? I didn't answer. I just sent him the doctored emails Melissa gave the investigators, the ones coworkers had shown me on their phones. 5 minutes later, these aren't from your account. Different send path. Metadata doesn't match your device signature. That was the moment I exhaled for the first time in hours. Step 4, prepare for whatever the investigators found next. I didn't trust that Melissa would stop with emails. If she was desperate, she might try to plant conversations, twist statements, even get someone to lie for her. So I made a plan to protect myself from every angle. I wrote a full, chronological statement. Not to give to them yet, just so I could anchor myself in facts. I listed every time she told me to work off the clock, every time she assigned me supervisor-level tasks, every time she twisted something to make me look responsible for her decisions. Step 5, set up a quiet channel with the DOL investigators. Not an emotional rant, not accusations. Just a calm, factual message sent through their official contact link. I have reason to believe false statements may be given in my name. I am available to provide supporting documentation if needed. That was all I wrote. No drama, no fear, just a signal flare. The next morning when I walked into work, Melissa looked strangely confident, relaxed, even, like she believed she had won, like she thought she'd buried me under enough lies to escape untouched. But that confidence didn't last, because by noon the investigators called her into the conference room, and they stayed in there with her for almost an hour. When she finally came out, her face was white. Not pale, white. Something had shifted. Something big, but I didn't know what it was yet. When Melissa walked out of that conference room looking like she'd seen a ghost, everyone noticed. She didn't speak. She didn't blink. She just kept touching her necklace like it was choking her. Then she went straight into her office and shut the door, hard enough that the glass panel rattled. I kept my head down, pretending to sort inventory, but inside I was wired. Something had happened in that room, something she didn't see coming. About 15 minutes later, Evans, the quiet DOL investigator, stepped out of the conference room with another agent. They looked not angry, not confused, more like they'd uncovered a piece of something bigger, something they didn't expect. They asked to speak with me again. This time, it wasn't in an office. It was outside, behind the loading dock where no one could overhear. The wind was cold, sharp. My hands shook, but not from the temperature. Evans didn't waste time. "Did you know," he said, looking directly at me, "that your supervisor submitted 2 different versions of the same email thread?" I felt my stomach drop. "No. One version had timestamps matching the server. The other had timestamps altered. The altered version was the one she attempted to attribute to you." I swallowed hard. "Are you saying she doctored them?" "We're saying," the other agent replied, "that someone tried to fabricate internal communication. But that's not the twist." My breath caught. Evans continued, "The doctored emails weren't created recently. They were created months ago. Months, before I ever filed my complaint, before the bonus mess, before the audit." A cold, sinking realization moved through me like slow poison. "She was preparing for something," the agent said. "We don't know what yet, but you were being set up long before the current issues began." I had no words. My throat was tight. My brain couldn't keep up with the way everything was tilting sideways. Evans lowered his voice. "There's something else. The audit didn't start only because of your complaint." I froze. "What do you mean?" "A second complaint was filed. Not by you, anonymous as well. Different writing style, different tone." He looked me straight in the eyes. "That complaint names you directly." A chill ran all the way down my spine. Someone else had reported our workplace too, but they tried to frame me as a rule breaker instead of a victim. Someone wanted the investigation aimed at me, and whoever did it wasn't Melissa. My voice came out thin. "Do you know who filed it?" "We can't disclose that," he said. "But we can tell you this. The second complaint included screenshots of messages supposedly from you telling employees to clock out early. The metadata is inconsistent with your device. And the timing," he paused, letting the silence sit heavy, "matches the same period when the forged emails were created." The world felt too loud, too bright, too sharp. Someone else was involved. Someone who had gone out of their way to make it look like I was the one breaking laws. Maybe someone Melissa trusted. Maybe someone who held a grudge. Maybe someone who wanted me gone long before this. But I didn't have time to process that because Evans wasn't done. "We confronted your supervisor with this," he said slowly. "She folded faster than we expected. And in her panic, she said something we can't ignore." "What?" I whispered. "That you were always meant to take the fall if things ever blew up." The words hit me like a punch right in the chest. Always meant, not by accident. Not in the moment, planned, deliberate. And just like that, the entire story rewired itself in my head. This wasn't about bonuses, or overtime, or one supervisor being petty and lazy. This was bigger and darker. And I was at the center of it without even knowing. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying Evan's words over and over. "You were always meant to take the fall." I didn't understand what that meant until the next morning, when Melissa finally cracked. It happened in the conference room. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but the walls in that building were thin, and her voice carried when she panicked. She was talking fast, crying, trying to defend herself to the investigators. Most of it was muffled, but then one sentence came through loud and clear. "I had to use someone. They told me to use someone." My heart stopped. They, not she, not I, they. Something inside me said, "Don't move," but my body was already drifting toward the hallway like I was being pulled by gravity. I stopped just outside the doorway and listened, barely breathing. Evan's voice was calm. "Who told you to use this employee as a scapegoat?" There was a long silence, a shaky inhale. Then Melissa whispered, "Upper management." I felt like the floor tilted. She kept talking, and every word made my stomach turn. "They told me during my transfer," she said, voice cracking. "Before I even started at this branch. They said morale here was already low. They said they needed someone reliable who could take on responsibility without questioning anything. Someone who wouldn't fight back. Someone who already had a reputation for being helpful." My hands clenched into fists. She continued, "They said if anything ever came under scrutiny, inventory shortages, overtime issues, compliance checks, the easiest solution was to pin procedural confusion on the helpful one. Because helpful people don't argue. Helpful people apologize. Helpful people stay quiet." My mouth went dry. She was talking about me. She had been instructed, before she even met me, to use me as a shield for anything messy. But that wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part came when her voice dropped lower, bitter and small. "They said he wasn't going anywhere. They said he'd never quit, never push back, that he needed the job too much to cause trouble. I swear something broke inside me. Clean break, no noise, just a snap I could feel in my ribs. They had chosen me because they thought I was weak, because I worked hard, because I tried to help people, because I didn't raise my voice or fight every injustice like some employees did. They took the best parts of me, my work ethic, my patience, my willingness to keep things running, and twisted them into a weapon against me. But Melissa wasn't done. The forged emails weren't my idea, she said, crying now. They told me to build a pattern over time, just in case, just enough that if anything blew up, we could say he was acting outside his role, that he was taking initiative without permission, that he caused the payroll issues. I felt sick. I felt stupid. I felt used in a way I'd never felt used before. This wasn't incompetence, or miscommunication, or even a personal grudge. It was a plan. A contingency plan designed by people who didn't know me, didn't care about me, and never intended for me to succeed. They decided I was expendable the moment I signed my hiring paperwork. They built an entire strategy around the idea that I wouldn't fight back, because they assumed I couldn't. That was the part that chilled me the most. Not the betrayal, not the setup, not the months of manipulated records. It was the truth behind it. They did it because they believed I wouldn't be human enough to protect myself. They thought I was that obedient, that quiet, that powerless. They thought I would break. They were wrong. When I walked into work the next morning, something in me was different. Not harder, not colder, just done being useful. Done being quiet. Done being the person they handpicked to sacrifice. I didn't storm in. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't make a scene. I showed up exactly on time, logged in, and waited. At 10:42 a.m., Evans asked me to step into the conference room. Melissa was already inside, sitting stiffly at the far end of the table. 2 district HR reps had arrived, faces tight, voices clipped, the kind of people who only show up when something catastrophic is unfolding. They asked me to sit. I did. Evans began. "Thank you for your patience. We've completed the preliminary stage of our investigation. We have some findings to review." He turned to me first. "You are not under any suspicion. In fact, your documentation has confirmed multiple violations." I didn't react. I just nodded, steady. Then he turned to HR. He read off everything they had found: months of off-the-clock labor, falsified time cards, altered records, retaliatory behavior, and the forged emails. Then he dropped the death blow. "There is evidence suggesting upper management requested a plan to deflect responsibility onto a specific employee. That employee was him." The room went silent. HR's faces drained. But the real moment, the moment everything finally tilted in my favor, came when Evans slid a folder toward me and said, "We will need your full statement to complete the next steps. We will also be requiring the company to pay back wages dating back 18 months. And based on current findings, this case may escalate to civil penalties." Melissa let out a small sound. Not quite a sob. Not quite a gasp. More like the last exhale of someone watching their life burn down. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. HR tried damage control fast, leaning forward, smiling, asking if we could work something out internally. They mentioned reassignment, promotion possibilities, misunderstandings, anything to soften the blow. I let them talk themselves into a hole. Then I calmly pulled out my own folder, the one with my full logs, timestamped documents, and the IT analysis proving the emails were forged. I slid it across the table. "This is my formal contribution to the investigation," I said. "In full." Their faces fell at the word formal. They realized I wasn't negotiating. I wasn't looking for a payout they could slip me to keep quiet. I wanted the record. I wanted the truth stamped into the official findings where no one could bury it. After that, things moved fast. Melissa was escorted out of the building by security before lunch. Upper management received notice they were being investigated separately. DOL froze payroll not just for our branch, but for the entire district. And me? I spent the next 2 weeks answering questions, providing documents, and watching the company unravel piece by piece. When the final report came out, it was brutal. Every violation spelled out. Every manipulated record exposed. Every part of their plan detailed line by line. I received back pay for every unpaid hour, plus penalty wages. It was more money than I'd seen in years. But the real closure came the day the regional director called me personally, voice tight, rehearsed, and said, "We regret that your reliability was exploited. This was not the culture we intended to create." I didn't laugh. I didn't yell. I just said, "You created exactly the culture you intended. You just didn't expect someone to write it down." I quit the next morning. As I walked out for the last time, the building looked smaller, sadder, like a place I had outgrown long before it ever turned on me. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something real settle inside my chest. Not revenge. Not victory, just freedom. And a quiet promise to myself, I will never again let anyone mistake my kindness for weakness.